President Trump's second impeachment trial began with dramatic images of that deadly riot on the U.S. Capitol last month. Now this morning, Fox 5 is taking an even deeper dive into that siege on democracy with a brand new podcast. Fox 5 reporter Lindsay Watson, photojournalist Van Applegate examined the police response, the lives lost, and the people now facing federal charges. They also investigate how this could happen and share our crew's own experiences from covering the riot both inside and outside of the Capitol. Take a look.
I've been in situations like that before. I've never really had a mob attack me before.
I think I did say at one point, like, this is my city. Like, I live in this city. And they're like, you're not safe here.
Then I thought about what President Trump tweeted back in December saying, be there, will be wild. For some reason, that tweet kept popping up in my head.
Fitz, you have been inside the Capitol. You were part of
the officer turned to all of us and said, you all need to get into a locked room right now and barricade the doors.
That podcast premieres today. First, though, Lindsay and Van join us live to talk all about it. Good morning to you both. The images and the audio that we heard there are just stunning to hear. So I'm glad we're talking about this. Both of you, Van and Lindsay, and our other colleagues did incredible work there on the ground. We saw the world saw the images play out during the first day of the impeachment trial. Lindsay, I want to start with you. What stuck with you the most from that day?
You know, I have to say, at this point, what has stuck with me the most is talking to my colleagues for the podcast, because I did not know even half of what people experienced out there. And Van and I didn't have it so bad. We work at night, and so we were coming in a little later. But the people that were out there working during the day had a very different experience. And I don't know if you saw that video of our crew, reporter Sierra Fox, and Doug Wilkes, who was her photographer, and this crowd of people was surrounding them, focusing in on Doug because he had the news camera. And there's this guy that was in his face, screaming at him, telling him to get out of his country. You know, people were calling them traitors. You see a woman kicking their security guards. And so I think at this point for me, when I think back on that day, I think I'll always remember talking to my coworkers and hearing about the fear that they experienced out there. I mean, we knew that it wasn't sunshine and roses, of course, but to really have these long conversations about what they experienced and what they were feeling, it made me very emotional, and I think it will stay with me for a long time.
Lindsay, we're playing those images too as you speak. Van, you've been in D.C. for years. You've reported on a lot of things. What was most striking for you covering this story that day?
Well, you know, first off, what Lindsay said, not just myself, but colleagues Doug Wilkes and Jesse Burkett Hall and Josh, all the guys that were out there for us, also the same thing. You know, over 50 years of combined experience, this was the single most frightening event for them to cover, not only because of the national implications of what was happening before us, but what was happening to us personally. And so I think this podcast is going to give our listeners and viewers a more cohesive and bigger picture about what we actually saw on the ground that wasn't on the TV screens everywhere that day. So really looking forward to being able to share kind of a more in-depth story about what happened to us, what happened to law enforcement, lawmakers, and as the series continues, the rioters themselves.
And Lindsay, on that note, obviously this takes a lot of work to put together, not to mention reliving some of the events of those days. What do you hope people take away from this?
From this first episode in particular, you know, I think people have a lot of ideas about the media and who we are. And our Fox 5 viewers, maybe this would not really resonate with them, you know, they're our fans, but I hope that some people hear this podcast who maybe do think of media as the enemy and can just hear the personal stories and the description of who my coworkers are, who I am, who Van is, and maybe just carry that information with them in the future, because again, people were so genuine and so honest about what they experienced and what they felt during all of this and what they felt afterwards. And I just think that those emotional stories, they will resonate with people, and I genuinely hope they do.
Yeah, and for so many of us who weren't there on the ground like you all were, or inside of the Capitol as all of this was unfolding, I think it'll provide some important insight. But you, Van and Lindsay, like I said, you guys do incredible work, and especially on that day, along with other journalists. So I appreciate you guys putting in the work to put out this podcast. Hopefully people will tune in for that. Thank you to you both.
Thank you.
And just a reminder here, you can listen to the podcast on Fox 5 DC and in the Fox 5 DC News app, but it will also be available on iTunes, Google Play, and Spotify. And again, that is available right now.